Hello friends, I am Mayank Mehta and along with me is Medha Shekar, and we will be discussing today about our topic Grievance Redressal Mechanisms at Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. So just to start with the topic, I would just stop and highlight the fact what are the objectives of any corporate debtor or a firm. Any corporate debtor or a CD, it has only one objective, that to maximize the value of its stakeholders. Stakeholders can be anyone. It can be financial creditors, it can be operational creditor, it can be workmen, it can be employees. So the ultimate objective of a corporate debtor is to maximize the value of its stakeholders which are associated with it. So once a corporate debtor or a firm enters into a CIRP process, an insolvency professional comes and takes into the shoes of board of directors, and he has to comply with all the laws which has to be complied from time to time and maintain the corporate debtor as a going concern. And to achieve this objective, to maximize the value of stakeholders, which is an ongoing objective, it is very important that an insolvency professional must act in a neutral and unbiased manner without giving any preference to any of the stakeholder. So to ensure that during any CIRP process that IP works in a manner which is prescribed under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code as well as the regulations specified thereunder, there are specific provisions which enables the IBBI as well as the respective IPs, insolvency professional agencies, wherein the IPs are registered, that they should monitor the performance of IPs on a continuous basis and also can take action for any wrongdoing if required at all during the process. So now we will discuss about the regulatory architecture of IBBI for insolvency professionals. So as per the regulatory architecture, IBBI is being the principal regulator for the insolvency professional and insolvency professional agencies for which the IPs are the frontline regulators for them. So section 217 of IBC code, it actually mandates that any person or a stakeholder who is aggrieved by the functioning or conduct of a service provider, it can file a complaint with IBBI, and it is the mandatory for IBBI to examine those complaints. Further, as we said that IPs are the frontline regulators for IPs, there is a section 204 of the code, and one of their primary functions is that they should redress the grievances of the stakeholders which are filed against their members. So this is the regulatory structure. So now, considering that provisions which has been enabling provisions which has been provided in the code, IBBI during 2017 has notified a detailed grievance and complaint handling procedure, under which there is a detailed mechanism how the complaint should be or grievance should be filed with the board, who can file the same, what is the procedure to be examined, to examine it at the board, and the manner how it should be disposed of. So these regulations actually enable a stakeholder to file a grievance with against the service provider. So apart from this mechanism, board also receives the complaints or grievances through CP Grams portal or other ministries, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs or any other statutory bodies. So the first thing is, once a grievance or complaints needs to be filed with the board, what it should constitute. So the main thing is, first, while filing a grievance, and a stakeholder should reveal his identity. He should clearly prescribe the details of his identity and the details of service provider against whom the grievance or complaint is filed. In addition to that, he should make the details of the conduct of the service provider as well as the details of suffering from his conduct to the aggrieved. In addition, he should also mention that details of his efforts to get his grievance redressed from the service provider and in the end how this grievance may be redressed and what actions can be taken to redress his grievance. Now we will come to the filing mechanism. What is the filing mechanism? How a complaint can be filed with the board. IBBI for the ease of the stakeholders has dedicated platform which is available at the IBBI's website, through which any stakeholders can register himself and fill in the required details and file his complaints or grievances to the board. And in addition to that, if someone is unable to do that through an online portal, the complaints or grievances can be filed by post or it can be hand delivered to the board's office. As prescribed under the regulations, a request fee of which is 2,500 rupees is to be paid along with a filing of complaint, which can be paid through the demand draft in favor of IBBI as well as through online payment. So this, and very specifically to mention, this fee of 2,500 is refundable in case the complaint is non-frivolous. If the board after examination finds that the complaint is non-frivolous, the board may refund that fee. So now the next question is that what is the timeline to file the grievance? Any aggrieved shall file the grievance or a complaint with the board within the 45 days of the cause of action. And if not, if due to any unavoidable circumstances he is unable to file that complaint with the board, he has additional time period of 30 days with the reasons why he can't file, why he was not able to file the complaint within the request period of 45 days. So that is the mechanism to file a grievance. So now the question comes that identity of the stakeholder, which is quite important. While filing any complaint or grievance, it is required that an stakeholder shall disclose his identity along with the details. If in any case any person who is an authorized representative and is filing the complaint on behalf of some complainant, he should also reveal his identity, that he is authorized to do so from the complainant. If in any case any aggrieved he wish to keep his identity confidential, he in the complaint itself he can mention, and the board shall keep its identity confidential unless it is required to process that grievance. So once a complaint is received with the board assigns a unique registration number to each and every complaint, and it also communicates it to the complainant within a week of its receipt for the future references and inquiries with the board. Once unique registration is provided, the board, suppose in other cases, receives the similar complaints, the board also club these grievances and complaints to get a holistic approach while examining the complaints. The board doesn't take cognizance of any anonymous complaints or grievances filed with the board. So now after registering the grievances with the board, there is a specified manner under the complaints and grievances regulations in which it should be disposed of. After receipt of the same, the allegations leveled in that grievance or it is to be shared with the required service provider, and service provider needs to give its comment within a period of 7 days. If due to any circumstances within a period of 7 days the same is not provided, it can ask board to give additional period of 7 days to submit his response on the said grievance. Now after the receipt of response from the service provider, the board shall close the grievance within the period of 30 days of its receipt if it doesn't require any redressal. If in any case the board after examining comes to know that okay, some directions are to be provided to the service provider, it shall pass on the necessary communication to the service provider, and it should be done within a period of 30 days only. Now, as we earlier mentioned also, that one of the primary responsibility of the IPS being a frontline regulator is to manage the grievances and redress the same. So under the same, the board may also forward the grievances to the respective IPS where IP is a professional member. Once a grievance is provided to the IPS, the IPS shall handle it as per their model bylaws and intimate the same to the board within a period of 30 days of the receipt of the grievance at their side. Now, on a similar pattern, the board has a detailed mechanism for handling of complaints. As per the grievance, if the complaint is received at the board shares the allegations with the service provider and asks the service provider to share its comments on the same within a period of 7 days. And if required, the board may also seek some additional information from the complainant if required. Now, what can happen during the processing of a complaint? Once the comments of the service provider are received, the board shall independently examine it and came to a conclusion within a period of 30 days whether any prima facie case is there or not. Suppose if there is no prima facie case after examining the allegations vis-a-vis the reply received from the service provider, the board shall close the complaint within the period of 30 days and communicate the same to the complainant. If at all the complainant is not satisfied with the decision of the board, he may request a review also within a period of 30 days. Now, in scenario 2, if during the examination of the complaint, if the board finds that yes, there is a prima facie case and some contravention have been made by the service provider in that particular case, the board under regulation 11 may issue a show cause notice, or board may order a detailed investigations which is to be done in accordance with the inspection and investigation regulations 2017. Now, what will happen to the fee which we have discussed earlier? After examination of the same, the board will come to a conclusion that whether a complaint is frivolous or not frivolous. If the complaint is not found non-frivolous, it shall refund the amount of 2,500 received by the board to the complainant. Now, what we have discussed the both things, what are the to be done with the complaints and what has to be done with the grievances. What is the objective of these enforcement mechanism? So you have seen at each and every interval specified timelines have been provided to each and insolvency professional as well as for examination of the board, so that the purpose of examination should not get defeated and redressal or action has to be taken within a time-bound manner. And also, being a IPA, the frontline regulators, there should be effective participation of them during the process. Accordingly, the board is forwarding them the respective grievances to them, so that the objective which has been laid down in the code, that should be met. So, it is very pertinent to mention that they have enlarged the scope of IPAs during the recent amendment which has been carried out in the last month with respect to enforcement of IPs, that in accordance with 204, the grievances which has been received by the board, that is may be forwarded to the respective IPS for examination of them at their end, and board will monitor the performance and of their disposal by the IPS. And if any dissatisfaction is there from the aggrieved, the board shall examine it independently at their end. So what we have discussed, to summarize that part itself, once a complaint is received by the board decides it needs to be examined by the IPS or by the board. And once it is being decided, it needs to be dealt with the board. A suitable response within a period of, as we have discussed, 7 days is to be obtained from the service provider. After obtaining the service provider comments, board examine it and investigate the allegations leveled and comes to a conclusion independently that whether there is a prima facie contravention or not. If there are some prima facie contraventions during the process, board issues either a show cause notice to the insolvency professional or may go for a detailed investigation of the process also. After the issuance of show cause notice, the board provides 15 days to the insolvency professional to submit his response on the show cause notice and a opportunity for a personal hearing before the disciplinary committee, after which the disciplinary committee passes a reasoned order with the suitable directions to the insolvency professional. Now, these are the basic summary timelines which we have discussed, that you have each and every interval, a specified timeline is there. There is a period of 7 days which has been given to the IP to submit a response to a grievance and to complete or examine the dispose of the grievance within a period of 30 days, and request for review that should be done within a period of 30 days from the disposal. This is the basic actually statistics, how many complaints or grievances which have been received by the board right from the inception. So you can notice that in the period of 5 years, the board in totality has received 5,940 complaints and grievances and has disposed of 5,751 grievances in the same period, and balance are under examination as of now. Now we will discuss in detail the inspection and investigation by the board, which is the outcome of any complaint or a grievances. Now I will request my colleague Medha to just take it over to that part.
Thank you, sir. So, as my colleague Shri Mayank Mehta ji has explained the detailed complaint and grievance redressal mechanism of IBBI, so the ultimate question is what happens once a complaint is found to be non-frivolous and what does the board do with it? So this is where the inspection and investigation activities of the board come into play. The main purpose of inspection as to why the IBBI examines that complaint from that perspective is because we want to understand if the service provider, and in particular the insolvency professional, he has followed the procedures and the timelines which have been prescribed under the code, the rules and the regulations thereunder. So the inspection will examine if the IP is maintaining the records properly of the entire process, if he is following all the rules and the regulations, and if he has the required facilities and the resources to discharge his duties and responsibilities properly. And most importantly, to take that particular complaint forward, we also inquire into how a particular aspect which has been highlighted in the complaint has been contravened by that particular service provider or the insolvency professional. And of course, the inspection scope can also be increased to any other purpose as may be deemed fit by the board in furtherance of the objectives of the code. So to go into the nitty-gritties of how the IBBI conducts an inspection, the first step is that the board constitutes an inspecting authority. So it issues an order in which 2 or more officers of the IBBI compose an inspecting authority. The order of inspection gives full details of how the inspection has to be carried out. So it will mention the inspecting authority, the names of the officers. It will also touch upon the scope of inspection. So whether the board is examining all the assignments that have been handled by the insolvency professional, or if it is a complaint-based inspection, the scope will mention that the inspecting authority is required to examine that one particular aspect or that one particular assignment of the insolvency professional or the service provider. So once that inspection order has been issued, the inspecting authority will serve a notice of inspection to the insolvency professional. Now, ideally, when the notice of inspection is issued, we give a period of 10 days to the service provider to respond to that notice of inspection with the required records and documents which are required for inspection. So the inspection notice will give a very detailed checklist of what all is required from the insolvency professional, what are the documents that we are looking at, and the timeline as to if he has been meeting each timeline which has been prescribed under the code. Now, the inspection can be carried out on site, where the inspecting authority goes to the office of the service provider. There, the inspecting authority can demand for any document, any record, and all types of assistance from the service provider. And the service provider is duty bound to give all assistance to the inspecting authority. The other aspect would be we can conduct the inspection online. So we call for documents on email, and if we want to seek any clarification from the insolvency professional, we can conduct a meeting online and we can seek his responses therein. So these are the two modes by which the IBBI is presently conducting inspections. Now, the duty of the service provider in these circumstances is to provide all assistance to the inspecting authority. Now, there are two ways by which this inspection process can go forward. The first is by way of an interim inspection report. So once the documents have been received by the inspecting authority in IBBI, they examine each document given by the IP. On the basis of those documents, if the inspecting authority is satisfied that there is gross violation of the provisions of the code or the rules and the regulations, they submit an interim report to the board, and the board makes its opinion whether there has been gross violation of the code or the rules or the regulations thereunder. If they feel that yes, there has been a violation, they will immediately refer the matter to the disciplinary committee of the board. Now, this disciplinary committee will then examine the interim inspection report and it will pass an interim order. Once the interim order has been passed, giving directions to the insolvency professional or the concerned service provider, the order will lapse on expiry of 90 days. The other route is where the inspecting authority prepares a proper and a complete inspection report, in the sense that it prepares a draft inspection report and it submits a copy of that report both to the board as well as to the service provider. So it gives a period of 15 days to the insolvency professional or the service provider to give his comments or the reply on the contraventions that have been mentioned in that particular inspection report. Once that has been received by the inspecting authority, which is within a period of 15 days, it submits the draft inspection, the final inspection report to the board. In the meantime, when this inspection report has been submitted to the board also examines it and decides whether there is anything more to be done by the inspecting authority further in that draft inspection report. Once the comments and everything has been consolidated by the inspecting authority, it submits its final inspection report to the board. The other aspect of inspection, or I would say the other side, would be the conduct of investigation. Now, the process is very much similar to how the board deals in case of an inspection. We have constitution of an investigating authority. The investigating authority conducts an investigation, so it sends an investigation notice to the insolvency professional. It gives it some time to submit its documents. On the basis of that, an interim investigation report is prepared by the investigating authority and submitted to the board. The board then examines the report, and if it is satisfied that yes, there has been gross violation of certain provisions of the code or rules or the regulations thereunder, then it will again issue an order. And this then goes to the disciplinary committee. The disciplinary committee will then pass an interim order with appropriate directions to the service provider. And again, just in the case of an interim order, like we discussed earlier, the order will expire in 90 days. So now, once the inspection report has been submitted, the board will take a decision whether a show cause notice is to be issued to that particular service provider or not, or whether based on all the information that has been given, we can close that particular inspection or the investigation. If in case the board decides to issue a show cause notice, in that case what happens is that a 15-day period is given to the noticee. So the noticee will look at the show cause notice, will examine it, and will submit its reply on that particular show cause notice. Once that has been done, the board is again going to refer the show cause notice to the disciplinary committee. Now, the disciplinary committee holds a very important role here, because this is where the principles of natural justice come into being. The disciplinary committee has to dispose of the show cause notice in a manner which is just. So it gives an opportunity to the noticee to appear before the disciplinary committee and explain its case. So the show cause notice gives a very detailed contraventions that have been committed by the IP. So everything will be given in detail, the particular rule, the particular regulation which has been violated by the IP, and against each one of those contraventions, the IP gets an opportunity to present his case before the disciplinary committee. The disciplinary committee then examines and then passes a reasoned order. Now, generally, the endeavor is that the disciplinary committee will dispose of this particular show cause notice within a period of 35 days. Now, like we have said, the objective over here is not to cause undue burden to the particular insolvency professional. So the idea is to take this whole process in a very time-bound manner. So once we have, right from the time where an inspection notice is issued, till the time that a disciplinary committee order has been passed, we try to ensure that this is all done in a time-bound manner. So just to summarize on that, the time that is provided in the show cause notice so that he can make his written submission is 15 days, and the disciplinary committee tries to dispose of this particular show cause notice in a period of 35 days. So just to take you through how IBBI has fared over the past 6 years, more than 6 years, on how we have been doing. So in terms of inspections, we have ordered about 106 inspections. This is the statistics that I'm referring to for 21-22. And we have completed about 54 and 98 is ongoing. So this data is as on 31st March of 2022. Based on those inspections and investigations, we have issued show cause notices to the tune of 23. The disciplinary committee has disposed of about 16 of those, and balance 18 are under examination. So to conclude, what we can say is that the entire process of grievance redressal and the complaints mechanism is that it all concludes within a prescribed timeline. The board endeavors to do that. And we have laid down each and every step of the mechanism through our regulations, which is the complaints and grievance regulation and the inspection and investigation regulations. And everything has been put down for the convenience of all the stakeholders, so that any aggrieved person, whether it is a creditor, whether it is the management, whether it is an operational creditor of the particular corporate debtor, in fact, any stakeholder should be able to approach the board with their genuine grievance and their genuine complaint, and the board accordingly takes appropriate action and takes it to its logical end. And the process has been made very friendly. The stakeholders can apply online. They can even send it through email or through hard copy to the board, and it is taken cognizance of and disposed of as per law. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope that our explanation has been easy to understand, and we hope that the stakeholders would be more than willing to utilize the code and lodge their complaints and their grievances with IBBI if need be. Thank you very much.